What's up, guys? It's Twinless Twin here, and we have a VOD review. This VOD was submitted by LC Knight Rider. Thank you for your support as a patron, and let's check out your matches. So you submitted a pretty cool list. This is not a generic Murktide list, but that's okay. It's blue-red, and it's wizards. I think this is something that a lot of people have been interested in since the printing of Flame of Anor, a super strong spell if you can consistently have wizards in play. Just taking a look at your list, you have 4 Spellstutter Sprite, 4 Snapcaster Mage as your wizards, no Tashana's Tidebinder, oh, and 4 Sleep Curse Fairy, notably. You don't have any Tashana's Tidebinders, and it doesn't look like you have any Mutavaults, unless there's one hidden below that Thundering Falls. But I think that makes sense. I mean, this deck is very color pip intensive. I guess you have the Spellstutters, the Snapcasters, and the Remans, so you could use the Mutavault sort of, and the Flames, but still, I think Mutavault is tricky in a deck like this just because you're very color mana intensive. Colorless mana is tricky to use. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into the match. It's a match against Yawgmoth, and it's a 3-game. Well, maybe I shouldn't spoil that. It could be up to 3 games if we're so lucky. And here we go.
Bolt, snap, block, and bolt. Oh, hey, I won a die roll. That's exciting.
I like winning the die roll.
This hand is not particularly exciting, but I could do turn 1 Surveil Land, turn 2 Remand, and go from there. I think it's reasonable enough that I will keep it.
So yeah, the Surveillant does help here. It means we have some way to start to set up our draw, even though we don't have a turn 1 play.
Well, fuck me, I guess. Land, no.
And Halfling is pretty bad for us when we have no way to answer it.
Sprite.
The Sprite's not going to help.
That's really bad for me.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that your list only had 5 removal spells, but I think you do it because you have the Flame of Anors, so it's like extra removal just on turn 3.
Shit.
So, I see,
Right.
I guess.
Possible for me. Ugh.
You could consider cycling the Remand there, because they have the Halfling in play. It's like, you probably just want to use the Remand to use your mana, but I guess casting Spell Stutter does mean if you draw, it gives yourself to draw Flame of Anor for like a huge blowout.
Sleep Cursed Fairy. Needed you earlier. Yeah, need more. So
Yeah, maybe playing the Spell Stutter there is fine over Remand.
For Scam, it's okay, but for this deck, it's...
To give you the chance to draw Flame of Anor.
I don't know, kind of agree.
And start to attack Crest.
Brotherhood's End or something. Not really the biggest fan of Curse Totem. Okay. What does this mean? This means what, like Endurance or Cord or something? Whether they're just gonna fling something at me? No. Soul Cauldron, okay. And they have the Yawgmoth.
Well, the good news is the Sleep Curse Fairy is
This game.
pretty much invincible.
I remanded this because I need to find a removal spell.
Okay, so now we use the Remand just to cycle.
That's certainly not a removal spell. Jesus Christ. Okay.
I think I'm gonna play this on faster speed so that we can just pause at the good spots. Alright, so yep, we consider because we're trying to find removal. Oh. I think that was a premature concession there, so let's see. Well, I say it's premature, but I probably would scoop at that spot in a league, to be honest. So what could we have done? We could have played Snapcaster and... Yeah, you were gonna lose. It can be, you know, magic is you're meant to have fun. That wasn't. It's not really a
That's
very
certainly
fun
not.
spot. Not a very interesting spot. You're probably just getting lost. You're getting killed unless their hand is like all lands. So if you really want to win, just keep playing. But I don't blame you for stopping there.
That
Sorry if I
is fair.
sound congested. I've been getting over a
That's not a room spell.
cough, but
That's not a room spell either. Okay. So
all
I
right.
think
So here's our sideboard, and I see
anything doesn't matter here. Remand is horrible.
wow, four subtleties.
Communication is horrible.
I like cutting the fawns and the
So it's not
remands.
great.
The fawn just doesn't have a lot of
So
targets.
this is
The
interesting.
remand
Pick
does.
your poison doesn't remain targets, I don't think. It's just Cauldron.
I think I just heard you say pick your poison, Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and I like where your head's at there. I think it's really important to have answers to Agatha's Soul Cauldron. And your list even has Snapcaster Mage, so Agatha's Soul Cauldron is more brutal against you. I mean, it's probably just as brutal because it's really, really good against blue-red decks. And oh, well, we have Flame of Anor. Yeah, with Flame of Anor, I guess I'm not really sure we actually need the pick your poisons because we have the Flame to Shatter, the Soul Cauldron. Yeah. Okay. I'm convinced we don't need it. I think I'd have at least a couple more removal spells in the sideboard, the 1 mana ones. Just in the case that you do go up against like Yawgmoth or Scam, some of those creature heavy decks. Because only 5 1 mana removal spells is pretty light.
So maybe a control deck.
And I hear your plan is to be a control deck. I think Spell Stutters Sprite's a card that would guess is bad here.
Right,
Like,
I think
they
the
don't have a
fact
ton of
that
ones and
have
zeros,
that sucks.
and it's really hard to Spell Stutter something that's more than that. So you're just really playing Spell Stutter to trigger the Flame of Anor,
Not
but
that I want those. They handle artifacts. Um,
yeah, I like cutting Spell Stutters. I think Remand is actually better than Spell Stutter in probably
it's also
most situations.
I wanted to be really heavy-handed against Cascade and lost O2 to that, so not entirely sure what that means for this exact configuration here. Alright. So I need to... God damn. Just cannot find one of my 5 bolts ever. So if I keep this, if they have a turn 1 halfling, it's horrible for me. If they have anything else, it's fine.
I think you have to keep a hand like this. So I hear you say, if they have a turn 1 halfling, it's horrible for me. If they don't, it's fine. Because of the way you built your deck with only 5 removal spells, I just don't think mulliganing a hand like this is ever really acceptable. Like, if you had 7 or 8, then you have a really, really good chance of seeing one in your 6. But with only 5 copies, it's like not extremely favored for you to see one. I think it's around like 40-45% to see one. So mulliganing every hand that doesn't have it. I guess you have the Stern Scoldings too, technically. I mean, you could even say like if they have Halfling, you have to Subtlety pitch Archmage's Charm, and then you counterspell it on turn 2, and then hope to go from there. It's not ideal, but like at least you're not literally stone cold dead to the Halfling. And this hand is just fine otherwise. Like getting to curve out counterspells into Subtlety is really great against Yawgmoth.
I'm level 6.
So yeah, and this has to be a keep.
Okay. I don't even... Well, there goes my hand. My entire hand is ruined. I'll let them have this one. Hopefully draw like golds.
Interesting. You did not. I think that you probably do want a Subtlety there. Like, it's so bad if they have Grist or something. At least the Subtlety slows them down, lets you counterspell their Halfling, and then they can't make any big plays until their turn 3, which means you're going to have 2 more draw steps.
And then...
But I guess on the other hand, we can just Archmage's Charm, gain control of the Halfling.
Then it's bad, but I'm not dead.
Yeah, I didn't actually think of that.
Right now, and if they cast
I haven't played with Archmage's Charm in a while. Archmage's Charm, gain control of the Halfling, now that's quite the play.
If they have Grist, I choose not to play the Fairy. If Subtlety pitching the Fairy, Archmage's Charm this thing, they still have Grist either way. They gotta put the Fairy down, and if they do something that's not Grist, then I should have held a counterspell, but the faster this thing enters the battlefield, the faster things are attacking, so this is the play.
I agree with that. I think that like you can't counter the Grist anyways. Just get the fairy down.
That's fine. It's not a grist.
Yeah, I actually really like this play of Archmage's Drum gain control of the halfling. That's a pretty heads up play. Nice fine Knight Rider.
Oh, right. Soul Cauldron would have also been a counterable, so.
Well, Soul Cauldron's is probably fine here.
Not a Sleeper's Fairy. Alright, give me that.
That's right, give me that.
I don't
And these Sleep Curse Fairies actually seem kind of annoying for Yawgmoth to deal with, because the Yawgmoths themselves can just like never really kill them. It takes like, you have to pay Ward 2 every time you target it, so they can only really kill it with Grist.
They're attacking, that's fine.
And they have to pay Ward 2 on Grist, which means they can't really kill it with Grist the turn Grist comes down into play.
Bowmasters. They do have Bowmasters, okay. Also fine. Consider right off time next Bowmasters.
So we can play this fairy and then hold up a subtlety.
Counterspell. And consider if I really want to grow their Bowmaster. Spoiler alert, I don't really want to grow their Bowmaster.
And I agree, there's no need to consider here.
Probably fetch it. Try and remember. Maybe a Surveillant. Out of Surveillant. Okay. My spell's gone. Thoughtseize. Yikes. They have 2 mana right now. I don't
I think Thoughtseize is fine here. We just have two counters, right? So we're not worried. We're not very worried about this
I think
Thoughtseize.
I'm supposed to counter this.
They have to probably take the subtlety.
Not happy about it.
You have to think they probably have to take the subtlety, and then you're left with counterspell. I mean, on the other hand, they can't. Their worst case would probably be. That means they this. So okay, hold on, let's pause here. So they Thoughtseize. Worst case, they have land plus 3-drop. I'm not sure which is the most scary 3-drop. Probably just Endurance, I think, is the most scary to hear. Then you can't really do anything for a while, which is pretty bad for us. But I feel like if you let the Thoughtseize resolve, they just take Subtlety, and then you still have Counterspell. Which, to me, seems pretty good. And they're down to 1 card. Now they attack, and they're attacking all these things into the halfling. To me, this says, I mean, they're at least representing Orcish Bowmasters, so you have to decide, is it worth it to risk that? I think the answer is probably no. The issue is if the Delighted Halfling dies, then, if our Delighted Halfling dies, then they can Soul Cauldron it, and then all their creatures with counters become mana dorks that make their stuff uncounterable. I guess we still have the subtlety now, but that seems like a pretty dangerous game to play. So I'd probably rather not block, I think. Because we're taking just 3. We could even attack with the halfling, maybe.
Alright, well, I guess if they have another Bowmasters, I can block the Orc Army token. I can block the Bowmaster itself. Then that guaranteed kills it. Oh no, they're all 1/1s. It means they have Pendlehaven, right? Herder.
Oh, they literally have an onboard Pendlehaven. I couldn't even see that. Yeah, they have a Pendlehaven. Okay, well... Knight Rider's playing this match sharper than I am, that's for sure.
Steam Fence, okay. I guess I want to be able to hold up Subtlety and untap. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing about this Sleep Curse Fairy is it has Pseudo Vigilance. You can pay 2 to untap it. So we can, like, untap it and block if they attack again, making their attacks pretty bad. Yawgmoth, well, pretty straightforward subtlety here. And then now we can also untap our other Sleep Cursory and hit him for 9 so that the Yawgmoth just doesn't do a lot.
Top, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna untap this thing twice and bash them with as much flying power as I can muster.
Yep, I like that plan. Untap it twice, bash him with the power. Hitting Yawgmoth down to low life totals is always going to help. Oh, that's almost lethal. Puts them down to 1, which should almost certainly seal your victory.
Do I just bolt them now? I don't know.
No reason to bolt them now.
Then they...
Let them commit to a play like Yawgmoth or something without the information.
I think I make them go for it.
I mean, I think they know they're dead. Yawgmoth can't beat these Sleep Curse Fairies. But now we can bolt them.
Well, they're currently dead on board. They just do no targets on us. But they target the halfling. Okay. That's fine.
We don't want to let them kill Halfling, because then it gives them a bunch of mana.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
but yeah, they're just dead.
Okay, I think that I'm gonna consider no changes here. On the draw, I have too much more concern about a turn 1 mana work. But,
Yeah, I agree, no changes. I mean, maybe like one pick your poison or something.
draw with my
The Flame of Anors do a lot in the matchup, so...
no red mana. The one spell is right still here. Xanthus, I would have to page cast subtlety on a 1-drop, but then I get spell on the way back down. That's really interesting. I have explosives and I have 2 colors.
You actually can't spell stutter on the way back down, but you could explosives, the 1-drop. Seed Subtlety...
I think with this...
So this hand, the problem is like you're not close to casting a Murktide, right? And the Subtlety's pitch cast are not very good unless you have some type of pressure, which you have none of that going on either. You also don't have red mana, so a lot of your spells that you draw are dead until you draw a red land. It's easy to talk yourself into keeping hands like this because you have stuff you can do, but I think that just the majority of the time they require you to draw really well, and I think it's just like a better practice to try to draw really well on a 6-card hand than to try to draw really well at the top of your deck when you're only drawing 1 card per turn. So I would mulligan this hand because you're not actually going to be able to do too much unless you draw some specific cards, and the hand is just pretty weak. I mean, I think that it's likely to lose to a Halfling. It's likely to lose to a Soul Cauldron. And like you're basically counting on them going like Yawgmoth into Strangleroot Geist, or like Halfling into double Halfling, and then you blow them all up with EE or something like that. But I think it's just most likely not going to work out.
Sand, most draws are good. 3rd land is good. Snapcaster would be the draw, I suppose. Oh, I'm not on the play, so that thing that I said about subtlety there, turn 1, and then sprite it on the way back down, that is just completely a lie. That is not real. So I'm going to try to find a bolt. Hooray, I did it.
Yes, good mulligan. And look at that. I mean, this hand is a lot better. I'd be really happy with this. I think I'd just put back the Subtlety because we're already... Yep. Okay, so I like putting back Subtlety there because we're already down a card. So it's really hard to pitch cast Subtlety. And I think all these other cards work well towards helping you get Murktide going. So you like kill their dude and you consider bolt something, and then boom, Murktide in there. You know, hopefully on turn 3. And hopefully we find like maybe a counter spell to back it up from a Grist.
Oh.
Ugh. We were hoping they'd have the Halfling there, you know, because we're not really going to be able to do anything against this Yawgmoth. But the nice thing about having Consider in your deck instead of Preordain is that we can just pass here and probably Consider.
I can Flame Slash and Bolt. So that'll be nice.
Patra. Okay. Now I think I would just probably bolt this. Or maybe you're supposed to... No, you're probably supposed to bolt it. Flame Slash, you could like Flame Slash a Wall of Roots, I guess. Or something.
Not what I was looking for exactly.
Yeah, probably pass here.
Faster than holding this Consider is going to be an option.
We could like fetch a Thundering Falls and then Consider.
That's fine. You got me.
Yawgmoth army here. Okay, well.
So, end of turn.
Now I kind of just want to...
Free Surveil. spin it, it makes Murktide come out faster.
So, okay, this is a pretty interesting spot. I'm not sure that I actually even would have gotten a Flame of Anor or like a Surveil land here. I might have gotten an untapped land because we have the Consider and then the Bolt, which then lets us play Murktide next turn. And my plan would have been Consider. I need to remember the list that we're playing with here. We have only 2 Stern Scoldings. I like having more Stern Scoldings personally, but Okay, so we... Oh, oops. Okay, let's go back a little bit. I personally would have tried to consider... Oh, we're still on this. Whatever. I personally would have tried to consider into a counter to help protect the Murktide or something like that. But I guess... I don't know. I mean, I guess the fetch land giving you the Surveil is half of the consider. And if we're not rushing to play Murktide this turn, then we could just do the Surveil. But then, if we're not rushing to play Murktide, we probably want the Flame of Anor here. I mean, it's a draw 2, or it's going to be, shoot their Grist or something. It could do a lot of valuable things for us. So, by getting the Surveil land, I feel like maybe, in my mind, that would mean I'm looking to play a little bit longer. Maybe wait till I get to 4 lands and have like Counterspell plus Murktide ideally. So the Flame of Anor actually would be pretty decent.
Okay. So removal spells aren't very good here. I can something now. I'm not sure. I don't have any fancy lands. Consider. Not really interested in that. It's not bad.
I don't think playing a Murktide here is horrible either.
And they have Grist. That is.
It's just if they have Grist that you get really punished.
Because we have 2. If Grist hits this, then I have 3 cards in the graveyard. So I have just enough to play another Murktide next turn. So I suppose I will do so. 1, 2.
And I like that you counted. All right, so if they do have Grist, what happens next? Well, I'll have 3 cards in the graveyard plus 4 lands. I could even Flame Slash something and then play another Murktide right after, right? So I think that hedging against Grist here actually makes the most sense. I would try to exile... Yep, I like this play. Leave 2 spells. Leave 2 spells behind. So that if they do have Grist, we can then go like Flame Slash and make a 6/6 Murktide.
Oh my god, that's very easy.
They do have Grist.
Oh my god, Andrew, why are you saying that's very easy?
So obviously we're not happy they have Grist, but we're in a much better spot now that we left those 2 spells in our yard. And we have another Murktide.
Well, that's annoying. Because now I want this Flame of Anor to stay in my graveyard.
I think we have to stick to the plan here. The Murktide seems much, much better than the Flame of Anor being in the graveyard, and our deck is full of spells, so we could probably draw like a counterspell or something to flashback with Snapcaster, ideally.
Please don't have another Grist. That'd be the worst case. Okay, half that's fine. Okay, so they have another Grist. Another Cord.
You have a Cord for 3. Ah, oh, brutal.
Alright, got me.
That's rough. That's rough. They couldn't even have corded the turn before, so they had to have the actual Grist, which I think mattered a lot. Like, if the Murktide turn that we played the first Murktide, they could have also had Cord up. I think that it's a pretty risky play. But when they only have like natural Grist as their out, I think you made the right plays here. Like, I don't have any. Yeah, and that's fair. It is a pretty unlikely spot to win from there. Well, thank you for submitting that VOD. Is a pretty interesting match. I think that your player was actually pretty heads up. I think that in deck construction, maybe you weren't as well prepared for Yawgmoth as you could have been. Like, you had less removal spells, less Stern Scoldings, all these cards that are really important to our game plan against Yawgmoth in traditional Murktide, and you kind of forewent those. I think that the Spellstutter sprites especially are a card where they seem cool at first. They're kind of cute, but in reality, I just think Spellstutter Sprite is very very narrow. It's more of a sideboard card for like Cascade, and even against Cascade, it's just a counter spell, right? And it can be Mystical Disputed or something. So I think that's probably what cost you in that match is more the way your deck was built than how you played. I was pretty impressed by your play, and I wish you the best going forward working on this list. It's a really cool list. I would personally try a couple more removal spells, move away from Spell Stutter Sprite. Drashana's Tidebinder works equally as well against Cascade and has some other applications if you're looking for that wizard card type. But yeah, and thank you for submitting. All right, see you guys. Hopefully my voice wasn't too bad.